More than a century after the stricken Titanic went down in the North Atlantic, the luxury cruise liner continues to cast its deathly shadow. Over the last week, we were gripped by the hunt for a submersible carrying 5 men to explore the Titanic's wreck 12,000 feet under the ocean. We were told the exploration company, Oceangate, who developed the vessel, had lost contact with it, but that there was enough oxygen to last 96 hours. Well, as we now know, that, as it turned out, was a fantasy. The submersible had been destroyed by a catastrophic implosion with the loss of all aboard, including 19-year-old Suleiman Dawood. Well, Julie Cook has spent years writing about the Titanic, including her book, Titanic and the City of Widows It Left Behind. Her great-grandfather was actually a stoker on the ship and went down with it in 1912, and she joins me in the studio now. You have such a very personal connection to this ship. What on earth made you want to go down and take a look at it? Because you were given that opportunity, weren't you?
I was. Great question. Yes, I mean, as a person, I've never wanted to go down to it. But as a journalist, I was approached in 2021 by an American production company who said, look, you've written this book, you're a descendant. My great-grandfather was a stoker on the Titanic. Come down with this presenter, see the ship, talk about it, and talk about your personal connection. So as journalists, we do, don't we? We agree to do things, and I said yes. It was quite embryonic stages. We were talking about the times and when we'd go and what it would be like on board. So I was nervous. I'm not into, small spaces or anything like that, and it would have been a 7-hour trip all round. But yes, I did agree, but I did have my misgivings.
What were they?
My misgivings were really naive ones, actually, at the time. It never crossed my mind anything like this could happen. My misgivings were, will I feel claustrophobic? How do you go to the loo? Things like that, really sort of inane, innocuous things, which actually now I think I was very naive not to think more about.
It didn't occur to you that actually the whole thing was sort of held together with string and sealing wax, as we discovered ultimately?
No, it wasn't. They had a very polished website. They are and were, and the remaining members of Oceangate are very top of their game. They're very experienced. And so you put your trust in these people. When people are great in what they do, you do put your trust in them, again, perhaps naively. And the actual design of the device, I believe, was helped or designed by NASA, although they're, I think, stepping away from that now. But yeah, I had no idea it was a sort of botched, perhaps, as we are now hearing.
Yeah, but you got out of it because you were told that there were problems with visas and everything else. And so basically the people who got you out of that saved your life. I mean, is that how you look at it now? Yes.
I mean, at the time, those 2 initial, I think, ones that year were successful. So in a way, if I had gone, perhaps it would have been all right. But as you say, it could have been so different now that we see what happened to that.
Does that make you feel sick to your stomach when you realise that's what might have happened?
Yes, I felt sick all week. Sick for them, worried for the 5 on board, particularly the young 19-year-old. There's a Titanic community as well of us descendants and people interested and Oceangate. And our paths do cross sort of on social media and all of that. So, yeah, very worried about people who I knew through people were on board. But now, yes, feeling like you've escaped something yourself, really.
I mean, it's not the only ship that's ever sunk in rather dramatic circumstances. What is it about the Titanic that gives it this sort of myth that people want to go and see it? What is it about it?
I agree. There's been the Lusitania, hasn't there, which was a huge disaster here on our shores, which hasn't garnered the same interest. I think the Titanic was, because it was such a beautiful ship, it was such an opulent ship, and it had the big names of the day. It's like every big name you know today being on one ship. It had Guggenheim, Molly Brown, all these bigwigs of the day, Jacob Astor. And if you imagine all those people either surviving or dying in one big event, and that happening today with people we know of today, it would be huge. I think it also represented the end of an era. We talk about before First World War and post-First World War. I think we can talk about pre-Titanic and post-Titanic. It was a microcosm of society in all the levels on the ship. First class, second class, the immigrants who wanted to have a better life, the people in the bottom, my great-grandfather, a stoker, the very poor. And I think it represented all of that in one big ship. And when that went down, life was never the same afterwards.
Yes, I mean, do you feel that this particular disaster now has made people consider whether or not we should actually be treating the wreck of the Titanic as a kind of tourist attraction, that it's an adventure playground for people who have the money and the opportunity to do it, that we should stop all of that now?
Yes, I do. I think it should stop. I think if ever a sign were needed that this should stop, it's this. I disagree with people who say, oh, but it's exploration of undersea. It's not. It's just people going to see the Titanic. You know, you can explore the erosion and the decay of the ship with ROVs. You know, the
yes.
unmanned equipment, or you know, through other ways. We don't need to be sending people down. I'm not judging the people who chose to go. They were explorers, brave explorers, and perhaps there are many people who would still have liked to have done that. Obviously, not with the outcome. But I do think now's the time to leave it be. It's a resting place, and it is a grave.
Yeah. Julie, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we are glad that you are able to,
yes.
and to be in one piece.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.